Hi. Okay, hi guys, this is Plasma Node. I decided to make a little announcement video here. Excuse me. I thought it'd be funny if I added this facial reaction cam thing in Roblox. Unfortunately, I don't have arm tracking, so, it is what it is. But, yeah, hopefully you guys find this amusing. Maybe it'll make it a little easier just to not stare off into, whatever screen I'm showing that doesn't really have anything to show. But anyway, so it's been a solid like year plus since I've uploaded anything about Omegaspace, really, and over that since I've done any sincere like development. Uh, and a few days ago I uploaded a 15-second video saying that I started working on Omegaspace again, and would you know it, 400 views. And that's, obviously it's only 15 seconds, but man, that's makes me happy that people are still interested in it, even though it's been like 4 years since I've actually done anything substantial to the game. Um, but I'd like to talk about the development of the game for a little bit. So, um, the reason I haven't been working on it very much lately has been mostly due to, dealing with having a life and such. And also because I've been focusing on other projects. I've been very focused on Dracaria in my free time, and I'll talk about that later. But I think that another thing is, even though I wasn't completely like unsure of what I was doing when I first started working on Omegaspace, which was previously called Project Omega, which that maybe I'll try to show that for a second. Okay, I think this should be it. Yeah, so originally I was working on it. It was called Project Omega. Oh wow, that's loud. 1 second. Nothing special really. The code base wasn't that good. Like if I go into the code here, it wasn't programmed terribly. It's just that it wasn't built like super well. Yeah, like look at this. This is kind of, not the best. It was highly experimental to say the least. And while to some degree it worked, okay, apparently I've lost control of my ship. Yeah, see, there was all these kind of glitches and stuff that were really weird. Um, I just didn't really have a ton of knowledge, and so not a whole lot got done besides some experimental stuff. Later you might remember me starting to upload stuff about hyperspace and whatnot. That's kind of like a resurgence in the development that I started doing around like 2018 or whatever. And also into like 2020. Specifically this hyperspace. Sorry, it might be a little laggy just because my GPU doesn't like to record 3 sessions of studio at the same time, so please bear with me. But yeah, so this was like the last like significant thing I worked on, and I gotta say, it looks pretty good, right? Like, hey, it's very pretty. But this isn't playable. It's literally just like, how do I put this? It's literally just a tech demo. You can't go anywhere. It's just the effect. Same thing for the hyperspace jump sequence. The code is a mess. It's basically just a pretty showcase. So I got thinking to myself lately, what am I doing? I made all this cool stuff, but I've never really done anything with it. So, earlier this year, I decided, okay, I need to make a space again. I need to get my crap together and start working on this. And the thing is, honestly, the thing that held me back for so long was trying to figure out the framework. Because I was originally developing something from scratch, like I did for Dracaria, but I just realized it wasn't going to work. Fortunately, a while back I discovered Knit by Slightnick, and it's honestly great because it's been able to help me like develop the game a lot better. So it's not like I'm strictly using Knit here. I'm still like, I would say I'm using Knit as like a tool, or as like a foundation for the game's framework. But I finally kind of got a hold of things, and I spent a lot of time, what free time I do have, experimenting and trying to figure out what the best way of doing things is. Because with such a ambitious with, su- with such an ambitious game that I want to do, it's like, as much as I understand things are going to have to be changed down the line, I still need to get things somewhat right the first time. So I think I've kind of got that down now for the most part. And on top of that, I've also started to learn other things. Like I'm trying to use promises more often and whatnot, just to make the game's code a lot higher quality. So to circle back to what I was saying earlier in the video, the thing that I uploaded that was 15 seconds long, the reason it took me so long to get that out is because, well, and the reason I put it out in the first place is because I wanted to be like, hey, I'm working on this. But I had only just gotten all this code to start working. I'm using VS Code now. Originally, I was using Rojo or Rojo, whatever you want to call it. I switched to something called like Argon because it's pretty new, but it's honestly it functions better for me. Um, Sorry, I'm trying not to ramble here, but basically, it's nice to have this external IDE instead of having to rely on Roblox. So where I'm at right now is, I'm pretty early in the game's development. I have no promises I can make, but I do want to make the game available to play kind of right off the bat. Um, for pre-alpha. Later in beta when things start getting serious, I'll probably make it private testing until it's ready to be like public beta. But for now, when I get significant content done, or it's at least half playable, um, I think that'll make it something that everyone can just join and play for free, just because that helps build the fan base up, and it also helps me, decide what exactly I want to do with the game. So, in terms of what I actually want to do with the game, it's going to be similar to Starscape, but a little bit broader. And honestly, one of the biggest inspirations for it would be SWTOR. It's one of my favorite games because of the story building. The thing I the thing I have with a lot of space games is that they're kind of empty. And I know, there's someone going like, wow, space is big and it's empty, so Plasma, what are you talking about? Well, yes, it is, okay, right? Blah, blah, blah. But look at Star Wars, for example. As big as and empty as space is, it makes it feel more full. Games like EVE Online and Starscape as well just feel empty. It's like there's nothing there. In EVE, you can't even land and get out of your space station and walk around. Most space games, you can't do that, and it sucks. In Starscape, you can, but it's pretty limited in scope. Also, with EVE, like, the combat sucks, frankly. Like, you know what? In EVE, it's like Star Trek. It's boring. It's just like, okay, shields at 37%. Oh, your kinetic missile just grazed off the hull, and you don't get to aim or anything. You just press a button, and it's like a module has run out of charges. Like it's fun in a strategic sense, but not really in a tactile sense. Um, what I want is I want combat in Omegaspace to be like this. See, look at this. This is cool, right? I don't care if it's not the most realistic thing ever. Guess what? It's fun. That's what's important. See, look at this. It's like okay, just watch. So look at this. Look, big fleet jumps in, right? Blah blah blah. And by the way, I apologize. I'm gonna be rambling here, but that's just whatever. I'm too lazy to sit down and edit the video. So, okay, compare that to this. Look, as cool as this is, and I get that it's a completely different game, this isn't the approach I'm going for. There's no aiming involved. It's more of a, like, strategic thing, which is fine. It's a great game, and I love it. But I kind of want to focus more on, like, the Star Wars-y type battles. That being said, I think there's a lot of things that EVE gets done right, which leads me to my next point, which is what exactly am I going to be doing in Omegaspace? Uh, so, okay, I didn't really have any structure to this, so I need to think what I'm going to say here. Basically, I want it to be something that you can just kind of go in and, like, hang out in. I want Omegaspace to be anything from something you can just go hop in a ship, fly away in a, carrier or whatever, load up, a bunch of drones or something and just go hop into a battle. Or if you want to just sit there in the space station and look at a beautiful gas giant, look at a beautiful nebula, asteroid field, or some crazy, I don't know, some crazy like phenomenon or anomaly, black hole, wormhole, go ahead, do that. But you can also explore those things. And that's one of the reasons it takes a while to develop this game is because there's a lot of, like I said, care and thought I have to put into it, um, in terms of making sure that it's done right. In terms of FTL travel, there's going to be a couple of main methods. The main mode is going to be hyperspace. And in a lot of space games, especially like games similar to Eve, it's almost always system to system to system. So whether it's warping or hyperspace or jump gates or stargates or whatever you want to call it, let's say that you're looking at a galaxy map. Here's the Star Wars galaxy map, for example. What a lot of games are going to do is let's say that you're like somewhere over here, right? And you want to get from this planet right here. Here, let me do this. I don't know if that's gonna work. Never mind. Let's just say you want to get from this planet right here to like over here. A lot of times, what you're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to go from this planet to 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 this planet, and that works in a lot of games. That also is a great way to prevent people from, traveling across the galaxy in the span of 5 minutes. But that's not really what I want to do for Omegaspace. Even though there will be other methods of FTL travel available, such as warping, jump gates, wormholes, blah blah blah. Um, I want hyperspace to function kind of like it does in Star Wars. So you'll notice in Star Wars there's things called hyperlanes, and here's a bit of a better map for that. Um, Pretty much there's like a few major lanes. For example, the Corellian Run, the Hydian Way, blah blah blah. Then you have some smaller hyperspace routes, and then smaller, and then very minor. So let's say that you're all the way at this part of the galaxy right here at Hoth, for example. Obviously, I'm not doing Star Wars, but just for the sake of example, let's just pretend I am. So if Hoth's right here and I want to get all the way to Coruscant, we can see that there's a pretty major hyperspace way that goes all the way down here. So in game, let's say that I'm somewhere far away and I want to get to the core of the galaxy. If I'm near a major hyperspace route, I can just jump to that hyperspace route and then stay pretty much in hyperspace straight without having to stop or only stopping a couple of times versus having to stop, dozens if not hundreds of times like you'd have to do in EVE Online. Pretty much a straight shot. Now, to balance this mechanic out, you'll have to deal with things like anomalies, dangerous systems, slower hyperdrives, and remote worlds. So it's not like you're going to be able to cross from any star system to the next in 5 minutes. For example, as quick as it is to go from Coruscant to Tatooine in Star Wars, it's going to be a lot more time to get somewhere out here like Alzok 3 because there's no major hyperlanes out here, so it's a lot slower. So sure, it might be fast to go all the way down to Ryloth, but then you got to start jumping in between systems. And I think this will be pretty useful for Omegaspace because, like I said, I don't want people to just be like, okay, I found out where someone's secret base is. I'm just gonna go fly over there and blow it up. That's kind of not ideal, right? And I do wish I had a map to show at this point, but it's just so early in development. I just kind of wanted to ramble about my thoughts. In general, though, it'll be balanced out. Like I said, maybe you're not in a super well armored ship and it's has a really fast hyperdrive, but to get to your planet, like maybe let's say you could take this route right here, not take this route. Let's say there's a planet right here and then there's a planet down here. Like if you're here and you want to get here, you'd think you'd want to go straight, but maybe there's some danger in between. Maybe there's systems you'd have to stop at to refuel or to just, get out and travel to a new hyperspace lane. There's a danger or something, right? So maybe you have to go around. It's stuff like that. I don't want it to be a game where there's balancing issues, and I know that that's not something I can promise because what game doesn't have balancing issues? Basically nothing. And if it doesn't have balancing issues, it's going to be something that was worked on over a long period of time. It takes a lot of testing and care to resolve those types of issues. Anyway, on to the next. Anyway, sorry for the little rambling segment. Warping will also be available. I'm working on figuring out exactly what I want to do, whether I want it to be something where you only use warping to go between planets in the same system, and then use hyperspace to go between different systems, or, different types of vessels use something different, whatnot. I don't know, I got a lot to think about. Another thing I'm gonna do is going back to what I said earlier, I'm going to make it so that you can kind of select different channels of music to listen to. So I'm really going to put a lot of emphasis into having nice ambience in the background. I'll probably pay for, I'll probably commission some tracks as well. But I want it to be so, if you're in some systems, you might have different music than if you're in other regions of space, just based on, what type of space it is, whether in your wild space or omega space or whatever. Um, more dangerous places might have more ominous ambient music, kind of like EVE Online does. Certain planets might have their own unique themes, same thing with space stations. But let's say you want to override that, you just want to have it set to like some calm, ambient space music. You can do that because I want the game to be a place that you can't just play, but you're not forced to just sit there and play. You can just chill out and vibe. That's one of the things I like about SWTOR is, it's not the best game in terms of combat, but it's a pretty chill game if you want to just sit around and vibe. I just like to run around and just leave it open on an extra monitor and just listen to the ambience, all the people walking around in the space stations, NPCs, that kind of thing. It's going to be a lot of work, but I think it'll be worth it. Moving next. Oh my gosh, I need to sleep, I think. Moving on to the next topic. Um, so a thing I've talked about a lot is going to be something I mentioned on Twitter. So let me get that pulled up. Aha, here we go. It took me like 5 minutes to find this. So basically, I'm calling it the local space system. So in a nutshell, uh, I want to make everything kind of real sized. So in Roblox, you can only have you can only go about 40,000 studs in any direction before physics start getting freaky. And I'm not going to go into why, but that's basically just how floating point precision works. So let's say that, the center of the game is right here, okay? Um, if one stud is a meter, and the solar system is like, let's see, how wide is the solar system? It's 5.9 billion kilometers, okay? And that's pretty big. There's no way on Earth that, or in space, I should say, that's ever going to fit in a game. So the question is, okay, what do we do? Well, it's actually kind of simple. So let's ignore the size of the planets for a moment. If you want to have multiple areas in a game, because realistically you're not going to be able to fly to every single, iota of space in a star system, what we're going to do is we're going to have something called a zoning system. So let's say there's a space station that you can visit, or an asteroid belt that you discover, or some kind of anomaly, or something that you can visit in space. Or maybe you just happen to fly off into some random part of space. What's going to happen is the game's going to create a zone around your ship. And it's going to only load in things around that zone. So you might be at 000 in the game, but in the star system, the game notes you as several billion kilometers this way. So instead of having the server load in all of the models and everything into workspace, you're going to load into the game and there's going to be nothing in the workspace. And instead, the server is going to tell you, okay, you're in this zone and there are these items in the zone and they go in these places. And then the client loads those in. And I'm not going to go into the whole long thing, so I'll make a separate video on this. But in a nutshell, it's going to allow us to have a huge, huge real-size star system in the game. And many of them, not just one. In terms of real-size planets, there's some clever tricks you can use with viewport frames and stuff to make things look bigger than they actually are. I'm kind of thinking about doing the same thing for ship interiors and space stations. I'm not 100% certain on that because viewport frames do have some, well, they don't look the prettiest, and there's also a lot of math involved with making it actually look nice. So we'll have to see. I'll post more about that later. Um, in terms of the anti-cheat and physics involved, um, it's not actually a huge issue because one of the common problems in terms of physics security in Roblox games is, let's say that you are assigned network ownership of a vehicle or something. What network ownership does is it says, okay, if an item or if a model or a part is not anchored, the server will basically trust your client. And the reason it does that is because rather than telling the server, okay, I'm pushing my gas pedal forward, now move the car, which means that we have to wait for latency for your computer to talk to the server, then the server to talk to you, and blah 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 back and forth, which can create lag and make it look choppy to you. It'll run locally on your client, and the server will just listen for what you say, and as long as nothing completely crazy happens, you can pretty much do anything you want with it. This is an issue because now we have to implement our own anti-cheat systems to make sure people aren't glitching through walls and whatnot, and they need speeding. Another issue is that, like, if you know how to do it right, you can glitch your car that you're driving and make it, have some kind of spasm and just, fling someone else's car off into space. If you've ever played Ultimate Driving, this was a pretty big issue, even without intending that to happen. It happened all the time. And it's pretty funny, but it ruins the game. So, using hacks to screw with physics is no longer an issue here, because instead of the server seeing that you have network ownership over an item, the server doesn't even know the item exists. It just tells you what is there, and if you're in a ship, you tell the computer, you tell the server, okay, my acceleration, throttle is up, and I think my ship should be about here. And the server does a bunch of checks to make sure that's legit, and then tells that to the other clients that are in the same zone. So this picture here is essentially showing what we can do with this system. The server sees this. Player 1 sees this. Player 2 sees this. These are all separate zones. So the server might have one zone loaded in. Well, I'll get to that later. But basically, just focus on the players for now. These are in almost the exact same locations. This tree is at 000. That spawn location is at 000. But they're loaded in separately. And so it's remarkably simple. You might have area A like this, and instead of having to do something like other games do and try to stretch everything out into a single 40,000 by 40,000 by 40,000 block, you can just make as many as you want and have each client load those in separately. In terms of managing physics, there's a bunch of tricks you can do so that the server doesn't actually have to calculate physics for everyone manually. They only need to work when it thinks that you're cheating or you're trying to, interact with other players. Outside of that, you can pretty much just trust the client, as stupid as that sounds. It's not, as much as I make that sound like it's a bad idea, trust me when I say it's not necessarily a bad idea. Like I said, it's going to take a long time to fully flesh everything out, especially ship interiors and whatnot, but it's going to be a very nice system. So I want to talk about other games for a second. So first of all, I'm not trying to compete with Starscape. This is just a separate project I have going on here. And also, I would add that there's a couple other games that I want to look at in terms of some of the things they do right and some of the things I think they do wrong. Now, I want to clarify here that they're not bad, and I actually like some of these games a lot. One of them is Starbase. It's actually one of the funnest space games I think I've ever played, and I'm going to link it in the description of the video if you want to go ahead and play it. But it has some flaws, and let me demonstrate that right now. Here we go. Excellent game. Mad props to the developers. Okay, once my head loads in here, I guess we can continue. So I'm not going to go ahead and talk about the game for too long because there's too many things I need to talk about, but in a nutshell, it's kind of like Starscape, but not as polished, but it's still really good. The thing about Starscape is, as polished as Starscape is, there isn't really a ton to do, and this has a lot more to do in it. This is kind of more straightforward. It's less grindy. So let me show something. In Starscape, the vehicles that you can... in Starscape, the ships that you can fly around in they're small. They're also somewhat small in this, but they're bigger. There's really three ways you can do ship size. You can do it like Starscape does, where everything is small and based around the size of the character. You can also do it like Starbase, which everything is small, but slightly larger. And then you can do it like other games, such as such as rovers that base it around the size of the ship. So, for example, rovers shrinks the ship, shrinks the characters down, whereas Starscape shrinks the ships down, and so does Starbase. But you'll notice something, and that's if I stop the ship here and I hop out, you can pretty much walk around on the ship. This isn't a huge ship. I'll spawn a big one in a minute, but you can see there's pretty big hangars here. You can't do this in Starscape, at least to my knowledge. And that's a major cool thing about it. So if I come over here, I can, spawn in a bomber or something. And just to clarify, again, I did not make this game. And you can, have fun with it. Blah, 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 blah. Let's see here. I'm trying to figure out how to shoot. Okay, I spawned in the bomber. I meant to spawn in something else. But the cool thing is that you can actually blow up your own ship here. So let me try that real quick. What's the button for it? Okay, whatever. I don't know. Let me just dock. Anyway, so if I spawn a better ship, you'll be able to see this. Hold on. See, this is one of the issues with the game, is you press a button and it just doesn't do anything half the time. It's a little unfortunate. Let me spawn in a bigger ship. But anyway, to get to my earlier point here, well, let me just show you what I'm talking about. Alright, here we go. So I'm spawning in a bigger ship now. Let's just wait for it to load. Oh, here we go. So this is a much bigger ship. The hangars are a lot bigger, You can shoot the guns. It's cool, right? But here, watch this. You might notice it's kind of slow. And part of the reason is because it's basically just using a bunch of huge parts. And while I'm sure there's some tricks involved with the interior despawning when you're not looking at it, for the most part, every single part in the ship is moving along with this. It's very, very inefficient. And I'm running at 20 FPS, and that's pretty good because even though I have a good computer, it's often lower than that. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go and hop in a fighter and show you what happens when I shoot at this. Okay, I'm spawning in a fighter now. Assuming it loads. Come on. You gotta be kidding me. You know, we're in combat now, so this should be more, a better example. So, when you get hit, all the parts on the ship detach and fly away. And as cool as that is, I hope that I can try and demo that here. You end up having even more lag. Because when you get hit, all the little parts that fly off stay spawned in for a little while. And so your ship just kind of sits there and breaks apart. And as cool as that is as an effect, it's not good in terms of game performance. And so, see, like that. Now imagine that with all the interior pieces coming off. That's a lot worse, because if you look at all these little parts inside, and yep, see, now the ship blew up and I'm dead. But I think you get the idea. Anyway, so this is bigger than Starscape is, but another one of the issues is that if you spawn in and you look around, like let's say I want to jump somewhere, right? Let's just jump in a escort. Here we go. If I jump in this, you'll see that there's various planets that are nearby that I can fly to. But you might notice that if I zoom in and out, they're not actually that big, and that's another one of the issues, is that, for a game that's supposed to be big, everything seems pretty small and close by. And again, I'm not criticizing this game. This is an awesome game, and I played it for when I discovered it, I played it every day for 8 hours plus. It's a lot of fun to blow other people's stuff up. I gotta make another video on this separately. But if I get going here, another one of the issues that if you fly into the planet, it's kind of like a bunch of the old Roblox space games. It loads in an interior for the planet, which again is cool, but it's not planet-sized. Another thing is you might notice that as big as these ships are, even that big ship that I was just in a minute ago is only equivalent to a fairly small ship in Star Wars if you account for character size. So, to make a full-size Star Destroyer-sized ship, I'd essentially have to make it thousands of studs long. And when you only have 40,000 studs to move around in each zone before you start having physics issues, that means that if you're 1,000 studs long, you can only move around 40 times the length of the ship before you actually hit the boundaries of the game. So that's another issue. Also, you can see that it's taking a while to load here, and I think someone's base is over here, which is why I'm getting shot at. Um, but yeah, so that's another thing I gotta consider is what I want to do for that. Now, don't get me wrong, it's plenty cool to like look out of a space station and see all these giant ships flying about with characters running around inside. But if you really want to make truly massive ships, truly massive planets, and truly massive space stations, you have to use different techniques. Bottom line is this. As fun as this game is, it's not exactly what I'm looking to copy because it's quite flawed in some ways. And I want to make a game that kind of avoids some of these stereotypical issues that other space games have. Again, no criticism to these people who made the game. I'm not the one who spent thousands of hours working on this, okay? But there's some pretty glaring issues that I need to address in Omegaspace. And I'm glad I've discovered games like these because it helps me analyze what they do right and what they do wrong. I mean, look at me. This is all I got right now, in addition to a couple other testing places in the hyperspace stuff. But like I said, it's a work in progress. I'll figure everything out. So, I've been rambling here for about 40 minutes or 30 minutes. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Hope you've enjoyed this little webcam me. Future less rambly and I'll probably do them scripted, to be honest. It's just that it's pretty late at night and I just wanted to bang this out real quick. So yeah, so thanks for watching. I'll post more about this soon, especially when I have stuff to actually show. So see you guys later.